So by the time this video goes out, it'll have been a little over 2 weeks since the Clippers traded for James Harden, a trade that so far has been an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, we're recording this right before they play the Nuggets on Tuesday, but if they drop that game, they'll fall to 0-5 in the Harden era. Not exactly what the Clippers signed up for when they traded for this guy.
Before we start ripping on the Clippers, if you haven't already, make sure you leave this video a like, give us a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on one of our videos. Also, quick disclaimer, some of the stats might be a tad off because we recorded this before the Denver game, but they're all still in the ballpark. So like we said in the intro, we are recording this before the Clippers play Denver on Tuesday. That is a game we do not anticipate them to win. And we just made a video on Harden when he was first traded to Philadelphia. In fact, it was 2 weeks ago from the day this video goes up. And in that video, we both said that we didn't think Harden on the Clippers was gonna work. But when we said that, we said it wasn't gonna work for a championship. They barely look like a play-in team right now.
Well, the Clippers were actually looking pretty well before they traded him. Like, Paul George started super well. Kawhi wasn't great, but he's had some moments. Russ was playing solid. And ever since getting them, they've been absolutely awful. And literally since the opening press conference when he made that comment, I am the system. He's not a system player. Harden is the system. That was the red flag, and everything else from there has just been awful.
Yeah, they're 0-4 with losses to the Knicks, the Nets, the Mavericks, and the Grizzlies. Hardly a murderer's row right there. I mean, sure, the Mavericks are good, but the Knicks and Nets are both hovering around 500, and the most troubling loss was that one to the Grizzlies. They're 2-8.
Yeah.
Their only other win is against the Blazers.
Yeah, that Grizzlies game, I was like, okay, they're winning this. Like, yeah, they've struggled so far, whatever, it's gonna take some time. You got the Grizzlies at home, you're beating them, and then they didn't.
No, you're not beating them.
Apparently not.
Harden's stats, too, since he's come over from Philly, have just been really bad. He's averaging 13.5 points per game on 47% shooting from the field, 36.8% shooting from three. He's only taken 9 shots a game, but the most damning stat is his assists. He's only averaging 4.3 assists per game. And to anyone who forgot, he led the league last year in assists at 10.7 a game.
Well, yeah, people were saying like, oh, how is Embiid gonna fare without Harden feeding him the ball?
Fairly well,
Yeah,
I would say.
fairly well. It's more so, how's Harden gonna fare getting assists now that he can't just dump it down to Embiid and get easy assists?
Now that he doesn't have that Embiid pick and roll to rely on.
Right. And then on the other side, you got the Philadelphia 76ers, who obviously traded Harden, and we just came out with a video on them. They're on absolute fire. Tyrese Maxey dropped 50 points on Sunday against the Pacers. He's balling out, and I'm sure right now they are feeling just over the moon because not only is James Harden gone, they also got 2 first-round picks for him, a pick swap, and some okay role players for a guy who just looks completely washed right now.
They won the breakup.
Easily.
Absolutely won the breakup. Like, they broke up with their girl, got with a better girl, got a better job, got more benefits, a nicer apartment. Like, they're on fire right now.
Yeah, new fast cars, shiny toys, a boat. They got everything.
So it's very obviously not working for Harden on the Clippers, but can it be fixed? Well, we'll get into that. Also, I feel like we've got to say it is early. It's been 4 games as of now. It'll be 5 by the time this video goes up. So could they turn around? Yeah, I guess they could. I could also walk into 7-Eleven and win the Powerball in a couple of weeks. I guess it could happen, but I feel like we need to say that. So let's get into the first problem, is the complete lack of defense that this team plays. Now, I feel like everyone kind of see this coming, but the Clippers defense has fallen off a cliff since they got Harden.
I mean, I think it would take a little bit of a step back. Obviously, Harden's not a good defender, but come on, you still got Paul George, you got Kawhi. Their defense was pretty good before he showed up. The defensive rating was 106, and then he comes there, and the defensive rating drops to 119.
Harden should be wearing number 13 for the amount that their defensive rating drops.
Right. Like, Paul George and Kawhi there, Zubac, she's okay on defense. That should be good enough for at least a middle-of-the-pack defense.
Terrence Mann off the bench.
Yeah, PJ Tucker's still okay on defense.
And the Clippers are lucky that in their 4 games they've played New York, Brooklyn, and Memphis, because those 3 teams are not exactly dynamic on offense, so they didn't get lit up that badly. Then there was Dallas. Dallas eviscerated them. I mean, Luka had a field day. He dropped 44 points on 81% shooting. amazing.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. The Clippers had a 12-point lead in that game, which doesn't even feel real, but then they proceeded to get outscored 47-18 in the second quarter, including a 33-4 run. Luka was just balling out, like you said, and Kyrie was just basically playing a Klay Thompson role, just catching wide open threes and draining them as well.
See, like, this game is one of the most damning things because, like, yes, you're gonna get outscored, but, like, theoretically, Harden is there to stop the bleeding when you're giving up a 33-4 run.
You'd think
he would, and he couldn't. And just like, if you look at this roster, like we mentioned, Harden can't play defense. Russ tries, but he can't play defense. Zubac is fine, and Kawhi and PG are still both good defenders, but I mean, they're getting up there in age, they've had their injuries, and they got to carry a load on the offensive end, so they're not giving 100% every time on defense. And as much as we joked about it, as much as we made fun of them, they're missing Nick Batum, they're missing Rocco, they're missing Marcus Morris.
Well, Nick Batum, actually, he got thrown in the 76ers starting lineup with Kelly Oubre being out, and he played pretty well. And Covington, inconsistent shooter, but he'll always play good defense. So yeah, honestly, they are missing those guys. So we've talked about the struggles on the defensive end. That was expected a bit. You knew that was going to fall back a bit. What's super alarming is they've been a lot worse on offense with Harden as well.
Yeah, obviously we mentioned that Harden is struggling, but almost every other Clipper besides Harden, their stats have dropped since he got there. Kawhi's stats are down, PG's stats are down, Russ's stats are down. Paul George especially has been awful. He's shooting 34% from the field since Harden arrived. And I feel like this was kind of a concern, and we voiced it a little bit in our video on the trade, but it's like, is Harden really the type of player that the Clippers needed? Like, do they need another scorer slash distributor? I mean, they already had Russ, and like, yeah, Russ obviously has his flaws, but he's been pretty good for the Clippers, especially considering how bad things went for the Lakers. I mean, when he was on the Lakers, you remember this, I was saying like, I think he's out of the league in a year, and he has extended his career with the Clippers.
Yeah, now it's looking like Harden's out of the league.
Yeah, exactly.
No, they didn't need a facilitator or a scorer at all. They probably needed more depth at center, maybe pick up a shooter or something. They didn't need to do anything drastic, and they should have just held off, but there's no way anyone, even the biggest Harden haters, expected him to be this shit. Like, I know he's fallen off every single year, and he hasn't played at all this year, so that's probably part of it, but they expected at least like an all-star level Harden, not whatever the hell we've been seeing.
Well, I don't want to hear the excuse from any Harden defender like, oh, well, he needs to get back in shape. It's like, bro, you were invited to a training camp. Like, you chose not to show up. The Sixers would have played you early in the season if you were available. You chose not to show up. Like, I don't want to hear that.
Well, the other problem is the big four just really doesn't work together. It's a ton of isolation. I mean, Ty Lue had a recent press conference. I think it was after the Grizzlies game where he said, we need to stop standing around. He just was absolutely pissed. And that's what it is. It's just a ton of isolation. Like, Russ is an isolation player. Harden's an isolation player. Even Paul George and Kawhi, who can play off ball, are more isolation players. They don't really fit together.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like the Warriors big four, now obviously everyone in the Warriors big four, they were all in their prime, they were insanely talented, but like they all had their own distinct roles. Like Steph could score off the dribble, he could score off the catch, and he also is maybe the best off-ball mover without the ball since like Reggie Miller. Klay could play great defense, and he was probably the best spot-up shooter in the world. KD was your all-purpose isolation scorer when you need a bucket, and Draymond was like the engine of the team that facilitated, set screens, played defense. Like every one of the Clippers big four, if they don't have the ball, what do? They can't spot up, they can't move without the ball, none of them are really distributing, none of them are playing great defense. Like, all of them need the ball to be effective.
Yeah, they just stand around. And even think about an example like the Denver Nuggets. Like, I think you could say the Clippers are way more talented than the Denver Nuggets, but you look at the starting five, Denver Nuggets way more balanced. They have guys who are 3-and-D, they have guys who facilitate. Obviously Jokic runs things. The Clippers, just as a whole, as a starting five, do not work together.
It's a great 2K lineup.
It is a really, really great 2K lineup, but that's about it.
Yeah, if the Clippers are going to fix their offense, I think they need to demote either Russ or Harden to the bench. And I feel really bad because it's probably going to be Russ, and neither of us are big fans of Russ as a player. I mean, obviously we had the Dame-Russ rivalry for a long time, but Russ getting bumped to the bench, especially after how well he's played for the Clippers for James Harden, I would not feel good about that.
Yeah, I'd feel really bad. And honestly, if I'm Ty Lue, I say Harden, you're coming off the bench.
I would too.
Like, Russ was already here. He's bought into the system. He's come off the bench before. I say you say, James Harden, you know, you're still getting to play in shape. We need someone to come off the bench. You're new here. You come off the bench. You can get your buckets. But I would actually keep Russ as a starter.
Might also just be time for all of us to accept that James Harden he's not that guy anymore. And that's fine. Like, you know, he's getting up there in age. He had the hamstring injury from hell. And just out on the court, like, he doesn't look like his old self. Not just from like a physical perspective, but like a mental perspective. I mean, this is a guy who once averaged 35 points a game, who barely shoots anymore, even less than when he was in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and those Grizzlies plays when he had those 2 air balls.
Right.
First, there was the one where he's wiping off his shoes and whatever. I don't know if you need to do that during the game, whatever. It still looked awful. And then he chucks up that air ball. Might have been tipped a little bit. The second one, I can tell you, was not tipped.
Well, it was tipped very badly by Bismack Biyombo.
Oh, well, yeah, true. They needed to hit a 3 there. They kick it out to Harden, open 3, and just yikes. There was nowhere near the hoop.
When NBA players, especially ones that are good shooters, are airballing good looks, like, that's when it's in your head. Like, that's what I worry about, like, his confidence as a shooter, because NBA players don't airball shots very often. So, in the end, will the Clippers get any better? Almost certainly. I mean, theoretically, there's nowhere to go but up. They're 0-4 as of right now, probably will be 0-5 by the time this video goes up. So, you know, once they have Harden for a while, they get him integrated into the system, they finally convince him he's not the system anymore, you know, they'll be better, I think. But early results are not promising.
Yeah, and this isn't one of the years where you can just be the entire first like 3 months of the season and then, you know, play better at the end of the season, get the 6th seed. If you play bad to start the season, you might not even make the play-in. I mean, the Rockets are playing well. You got the Thunder, the Warriors, the Lakers are picking it up a bit. Obviously the Nuggets, the Mavericks, like they're in danger if they don't start picking it up to literally not even make the play-in.
I mean, look at the Grizzlies. They started 2-8. They're probably out.
Yeah, they're done.
If the Clippers lose a couple more games, like in their next 10 games, if they go 3-7, like they might be fighting for the play-in at the very best.
Yeah, it might come down to the West is that tough this year.
That's the video, guys. Do you think the Clippers can turn around this year? Love to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving it a like, as it really does help us out. And while you're here, why not check out some of our other videos as well? And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.